Hello, everyone. John Doyle from OptixEQ, and today I'm going to take a look at the late pick 5 from Belmont. Go through those races. Try to go through them as quickly as possible. It's hard, you don't want to miss stuff. But again, I asked you to kind of delve in. I'm just going to do it at a more superficial level, trying to focus in on things like, what's important in optics and how maybe you can look at things a little bit differently through the optics lens. And so let's just get to it. I'm going to start with race 5. I think that's the first leg. Yeah, it's a route on the turf course, and I guess they're on the turf. Yesterday they had a little bit of rain, so I think they'll be firm. I don't, it's early yet. Scratch just came in, so we'll see. But let's start with race 5. We look at high contention speed rating. But I don't trust that so much because we're looking at a race where, you have maiden claiming horses. You could see the run styles, right? We only have 3 horses with established run styles. So it's you gotta take it with a grain of salt. I mean, when you just look at this plot, though, it looks like the 4 and 8 dominate on the plot. Okay. But and they're the favorites and the big favorites. The 4 is, I guess, 7 to 5 and 6 to 5 on the 8. But I have problems with both of them, and I'm going to show you why. The 4 especially. The 4 has been, when you look at his numbers, this horse fits on numbers. The problem is this horse has been a maiden forever. You can see how far it goes back. I mean, this horse is a 7-year-old and still a maiden. Do you want to take 7 to 5 on this horse? I don't. I mean, Saez gets back. It looks like Saez is, run well with him too. But this horse just can't get past second. It seems like. And look at the last trip. It was off a layoff. Now, maybe this horse could improve off his layoff. I don't know, because I don't think there's much improvement left in this horse. I think he's run pretty much what he can run. But look at the extended note. If you cannot get it done with this trip, do not know when it is going, what it's going to take for him to get a win. So in other words, this horse had the perfect trip. And I don't know, just a horse that I would stand against in a situation like this. I mean, again, the 8 is the other big favorite, going to probably be the favorite. Like him a little bit better, but there's things about him again that's a little shaky. This is a horse that's now 3rd off a layoff, but notice the numbers. Let's start with this horse. As a 3-year-old. This horse was kind of running, started getting into form, but was it capable of running in like low 90s, upper 80s, mid 80s? Comes back off 191 day at Tampa. Okay, Tampa, you got to realize, much lower level than Belmont. Runs an okay 3rd with a 77. That horse should be running, especially with progression, with some age progression, should be at least mid 80s, if not higher. Then comes back and only improves 4 points in the Aqueduct race. And now they're dropping him. Probably the right move, but another horse plots really well, but just a horse I don't trust in this spot. I would be more inclined to use this one than the 4, but still, is there something else out there? Maybe. Let's look. Let's look at the number 1, Hookie Player. This is a horse that's coming off a layoff. Ran pretty well in each, improved in each race. Okay, started at Monmouth, and then the Belmont race, which is above today's level, as a 2-year-old ran a 71. So again, with the projection, 2-year-old to 3-year-old season, this horse should probably improve. This was back in like November last year, so you're thinking about 7 months, 6 or 7 months. This horse should improve at least 10 points. That 80 would put this horse in range to win this race if he's able to do that. Duarte is a trainer that does okay. He ships in more of a kind of New Jersey-based trainer. Franco is his go-to guy, so expect this horse maybe going to improve. Got a chance. Nice 10 to 1 morning line in a race where you got some horses that are vulnerable. The other horse, the number 3, don't like him as much as the 1, but in a race like this, you got to consider this horse's debut was on the turf, ran a 59. Then he came back and improved. Again, it was a drop down, but the projection was turf. So we're saying that this horse is better on the turf. And so another increase in number, who knows? It was against the $20,000 level, low profile kind of connections. If I was including like a C in this race, a C kind of horse, a backup of a backup, but something to consider. The 4 we talked about. The 5 was another horse I thought was just mildly interesting in this race. Where is it? This? Yeah, I mean, it just, well, not really. I thought this was mildly interesting. No, this is not the one. So I guess the 1 and the 2, 2 is the horse. Okay, I'm sorry, folks. Got my notes. 2 is the other horse. Okay, so 2 was in the same race as the 4. He was 9-1 that race. It was a first-time starter. The pace was average early, but fast, very fast in the middle parts. This horse was dueling, backed up. Probably didn't. This is no keep, maybe no push to. Gets a major jockey switch, and Weaver and Pratt won the last race yesterday. Looking for this horse to improve big time. Horses, there's no reason why a horse can't improve, somewhat on the order of 15, 20 points from race 1, 2, especially in a race like this where this horse probably made the run, got some fitness in him, and then backed off. In a race this shaky, is a horse that you want to definitely consider. So for me, 1, 2 are kind of would be my A's, and all with the 8, because I just think that's a horse that's, obviously. I'm going to try to stand against the 4 and then have the 3 as a C in this kind of race. So that's race 5, tricky race. And I think if you could maybe catch something in the first 2 legs here, try to beat some favorites, you could do some damage in this pick 5. So, but, good luck. This race is really tricky for me. And I'm really against the 7, and I'm a little bit against the 3. Those are the 2 favorites, the 3 and the 7. Now they both plot pretty well. 7 looks like the speed, but I'm not sure about that. The 2 is a little bit higher on the second call, and I think there's a reason for him to be forward in this race. So I'm thinking possibly the 2 could be the speed in this race. Again, remember, we're plotting past performances. When we start looking at the notes and trying to understand that, we're trying to project things, okay? So we'll get into how I project why I think the 2 might be in front of the 7. But that being said, the 3 looks okay, but there's some things that just, I don't know, just don't trust them. The horse could definitely win this race, probably the most likely horse. But let's go to the grid and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's start with the, first of all, let's start with the 3, and just because he's the favorite. Okay, so here's a horse that's coming out of state bred races. Okay, and he's done nothing wrong. Look at him, nice, improving figures. You got Chad Brown, Franco, Mike Dubb, all good, right? One thing is to look at the spacing between these horses' races. And so when he came back and he ran that race in the mud that day, he really, see the other comment, we always encourage you to look at the extended comment, especially when there's an other keyword. And this horse was on the favorable part of an outside bias that day. Okay, so is he really the 95, or is he a little dressed up? The next start, they put him in a turf and they scratch him. Obviously, they didn't intend to run him on the turf. They wanted the race to come off, and they were taking a shot. That tells me, maybe class-wise, they were a little concerned. And this guy, Chad Brown, is probably one of the best trainers around spotting horses in the right spots. And so that tells me a little confidence. Maybe, the first start outside New York State breds, they wanted a softer race. Well, today they go right into a dirt race. So, yeah, could he win? Could he regress to the 95? Yeah, would that make him a little bit vulnerable? Yeah. So, a horse you can use, I would probably use, but again, another horse I wouldn't kind of lean on in this race. Let's look at some of the others. Civil War. I think this horse is sneaky. This is a horse that, as 2-year-old, they thought enough of him to run him in a grade 3 at Aqueduct. Ran 5th. Ran him in a grade 3 as a 3-year-old in the Withers. Didn't run much, okay, but still, I mean, they had some high regard on this horse early on. Then, you know, they kind of laid him off a little bit. Came back in the Dwyer. I mean, so again, just like never lost confidence in this horse. So he must be showing something somewhere. After that race, he came back and ran his best figure ever off a long layoff. So he was gone for a long time. And I thought his return race was very solid. In fact, you see another keyword. It's only a 4-horse field. You got a soft pocket, dropped back on the turn, but re-rallied, hung on his left lead a little bit in the stretch. But this was a good return effort. This horse could move forward off of that race. So I don't know about for the win, but you know, he'd be a C maybe on, you know, multi-race tickets, but 30-1 is a horse you got to at least look at. The 2, okay, this is the horse that I thought potentially could be the horse that's going to be on the lead, coming off a layoff. And I just think this horse does better off the layoffs. You can see his races off the layoffs. He won off a layoff at Aqueduct, won off a layoff at Belmont. Both those races, he was forwardly placed. He was forwardly placed in this race. It was again, average, fast, very fast in the middle part of the race. It was 9 furlongs. He tired. Notice the jockey change from Davis to Saez. Saez, you can see, has had this horse on the lead pretty much every time he's run with him. They've run very well for Saez. I think this horse could be potentially speed to speed. In the case where, you know, I'm always a little bit leery about layoffs. This is a horse I think is okay with a layoff. I think this horse actually runs pretty well when he's fresh. And you can see, I mean, look, 239 days layoff. His debut, he won. 239-day layoff, he ran well. The only race he didn't run that well, he got kicked back in. Win here. So this is a horse that's going to be fresh. I'm assuming with the switch to Saez, they're going to send. And that's going to, I think, hurt the 7, who's probably going to be the second choice. And what I don't like about the 7 is this is a horse that showed a lot of problems early on, running in mid-90s even. Got laid off for over a year. He's come back, and his numbers, even with the bias in his return, didn't run a fast number, and then didn't improve at all in the second start of the layoff. I think this horse, you know, is not where he was, and I think people will be betting his kind of old performance, and that's why it's somewhat he looks okay on the plot too. So kind of against that one. The 8 is a horse that just looked like is in peak form or has peaked. You know, like this horse is never run anywhere near 90. He's kind of doubled them up. So this is a horse, another horse can take money where Ortiz. The barn is streaky, and I think they're a little cool right now. So I'm against the 8 too in this race. The 6 is another horse that I know is going to take money, but I'm not crazy on this horse either. Look at this Tessio. This is a race that's a stakes race. You know, he had some issues, but still ran 6th. And look at the Optics figure range for that race. It's below today's range. So if you think this is a class drop allowance from a stakes race, think again. Okay. So I'm really kind of against some of the favorites in here. Again, I like the 1 more underneath, but I would use it maybe even as a B when you pick 5. I'm really going to take a shot in this race. I'm going to use the 3 just because of the, you know, just the form and everything. But I'm going to try to hopefully beat him with a couple of horses, and the 4 is one of them. I just thought the 4 might, if you look up on the plot, might just sit the trip maybe behind if the 2 and the 7 go out and kill each other off. So for me, it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Just as simple as that. I'm going to try to take a stand against the 6 and hopefully, you know, beat the 3 here too. Spreading a little bit. Okay, race 7 is the next one, and I think when I was looking at this race, I mean, this is a kind of race where you can go really deep or you can single. It's kind of the way I look at it. And the horse I was thinking about is obviously the number 5 as a potential single in this race. We know that you know, these European horses have a big edge over US-based horses. And from a class perspective, and you can see this horse is first in a grade 3, third in a grade 2, It's kind of sprints for 8 furlongs. 7 furlongs would be like 8 furlongs here. Just kind of the way those races are run. They just seems like the Europeans horses that run at shorter distance can handle longer distance, so they make the transition to the States. He's done it both on soft. He's won both on soft and firm turf, so that's not an issue. I think this horse is being shipped because he probably looks a little bit better on. I should say she looks a little bit better on firmer ground. You got to deal with a year layoff. That's what you have to deal with. Hard to kind of maybe single a horse off of that. The morning line seems very high, just based on what this horse did in the past. Maybe it's the year layoff. But I think with firm ground, this horse has won off 108. He's ran a third in Grade 3 in France off a layoff. So for me, I think it's a horse if not, single, but definitely key around. And the morning line just seems a little bit off to me. The 2 is the other horse that's going to get some money here. Let's look at the 2. This is a Chad Brown Pratt horse, and there's another horse coming off a layoff. She's running, graded stakes before. You can see, back in the day, when she was shipped in from Europe, but she's really obviously never developed the horse that they thought she was going to be. Now she's had some issues in some of these races, but her problem is, and you can see it in her in the notes, the extended notes of her last time. Many move back search after a tardy start, made another move leaving the turn, has talent, but gait issues create problems. So she's got gait issues, which maybe kind of create some problems for her. If she can get away cleanly, maybe I prefer the 5 over her. But I don't see not people that want to use her. I don't have a problem with that. Let me look at the 9. I thought that was another kind of fairly interesting horse in this race. This is a horse that, again, another horse that really kind of well established in terms of graded stakes in Europe, in France. First race in the US, ran lights out, right? Big race. And then was put into the race at Pimlico, and didn't fire for some reason or another. Whatever it was. I mean, it's a weak race, and it was a slow race. I don't know what the deal was there. Comes back off 97-day layoff, got flow, ran a third in an optional this level race basically, and I don't know. Another thing, maybe it was the course or something like that. Another brown horse. Probably. Let's see the morning lines. Yeah. Watch the board here. If you're, it depends on how you lay out your ticket structure here. These horses might be horses you kind of include. This is the 10. This is a kind of a horse that's had some good form in the past, grade 2 races, but don't know if it's the same horse. Okay, off this layoff. Like I said, you can kind of, if you want, you can go real deep here. I just think the 5 might be just the horse to beat here. I just think it might be the class horse in the race. Don't argue with just kind of digging deeper in this race and come up with something. I just think the Browns will get bet. Not sure if they're absolutely the right ones, and I would just be careful with them. But it's a little bit of a race where you're gonna, if you don't kind of nail it down, you may have to go deeper. So anyway, that's race 7. Race 8, I thought this race really kind of, if I remember correctly, I just think that the 3 and the 6 look like standouts on the plot and look like the horses in this race. So I didn't want to spend a lot of time on this race. I just think those are the horses I remember. So 8th race, not much there. The 9th race, the one thing I'll bring to your attention, and let me go to the grid because I think this is a maiden race, so you got a lot of horses that haven't started. So one thing I did do is I looked at the other thing is it's a 6 furlong turf at Belmont. So I looked at 6 furlong turf at Belmont for maiden claimers just to see what the average win optics fig was. Okay, so it's 79, and you can see that's above the range. Okay, so what does that tell me? That tells me that probably the horses that are run are not good enough. So we have a lot of first-time starters. I think we have 4 or 5. I'd be looking there for the winner. I think if you sort here by speed figure, I guess the 6 is the only horse that's maybe fast enough, and that the best race ever was on synthetic. But I mean, his turf races are just probably the best of the lot. So I guess if you were kind of considering horses that that run before, that 6 would probably be an option. But I really would be looking at firsters here. So let me clear the filters and see who the firsters are. Oh, let me just recycle this. I think we got the 9, 11, and 12 are the horses that. So I just might spread and use all of them. If you got a little extra money, you might want to include the 6, especially if we caught something early on. You don't want to, the 6 is the best of those that are run, so you don't want to kind of eliminate them. So the 9, McCarthy, Ryerson, again 15 to 1. I wouldn't distinguish too much between these horses. The 10's a little bit tricky in the fact that he runs his best on the turf, but so if you're spreading a little deeper, this horse has gotten Lasix for the first time, might be a horse you consider, especially with the switch over the Ortiz. So maybe the horses that are run 6 and 10, 9, 11, and 12 are the ones that are first time starters, and I just would use all of them. 12 looks like it's Weaver Pratt, so this horse might be well meant also. So 6, 10, 9, 11, 12 in the last race. Hopefully you're alive to some big ticket, especially if you're going to bet a race today though, just go back and look at that 6th race, because I think the favorites could be a little bit vulnerable, and you can catch a price in that race. Things fall right. Okay, that's the pick 5. I'm John Doyle. Thanks for listening. OptixEQ, go there for all your products. So hopefully the idea here is to show you and educate you on how to use our products, show you maybe some handicapping techniques. You're not going to get it all, but eventually the more you watch us, the more you look at our site, I think things will start to sink in, and you'll start seeing things maybe a little bit differently. Maybe you can help with whatever you do in terms of the way you handicap. But you can see we have a process in terms of going looking through these races. There are things that we look for in terms of the plot and notes. So hopefully that helps you be a better handicapper. That's the idea. So thanks a lot for listening.